All rise. Proceedings will begin in front of Judge Kennedy in the case of Varma versus Kang.
You may be seated. May I ask the attorney for the plaintiff to please stand?
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, counsel. Would you please state your name for the record?
My name is Jordan Clark.
Okay, and you are representing Pat Varma?
Yes.
That is correct. Okay. Would you like to begin with your opening statement?
Before that, I would like to present the stipulations,
Okay.
which both parties have already agreed on.
And we don't have a court clerk to mark it, but I will accept it.
And I would also like to introduce my co-counsel.
Would you please? Co-counsel, would you please stand up and identify yourself?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Jordan Corbishley.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I'm Mark Munoz.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I'm Riley Breen.
Very nice to meet all of you. Thank you. You may be seated. And I assume, counsel, that you will be conducting the opening statement.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Would you please begin?
Your Honor, this is a case about missed opportunities. The missed opportunity at an education, the missed opportunity at an amazing soccer career, and the missed opportunity at a life. Pat Varma was a promising soccer prodigy who was in the USA top 5 freshman players in the country. She was the league top scorer. She was in the Global Scholastic for freshmen, which is insanely uncommon. Pat Varma had all of these beautiful and amazing things taken away from her by Dr. Kang's negligence. All these amazing opportunities were taken from her by Dr. Kang's negligence. During her first spring soccer game, Pat Varma scored the winning goal, and then she collapsed. Dr. Kang rushed onto the field. He resuscitated her. He brought her to the hospital. He performed a life-saving emergency surgery on her and saved Pat Varma's life. Dr. Kang moved on, thought that her work was done. But we have to ask, what happens after? What happens after the surgery? Dr. Kang did not look at Pat Varma's chart. She didn't read the radiology report that very clearly stated there was a 5 to 7 millimeter mass in Pat Varma's lung, which was recommended for further investigation to rule out malignancy. Due to the fact that Dr. Kang did not look at this, Pat Varma is dying from metastasized osteosarcoma today. Dr. Sklodowska sent the radiology report electronically to Dr. Kang, put it in Pat Varma's chart, and directly told Dr. Kang to look at the radiology report because there was a mass. Dr. Kang ignored all of this. They didn't look at their chart. They didn't even tell Pat Varma. Pat didn't know there was a mass in her lung until 3 years later. Pat Varma took all the necessary precautions that a teenager would take. She had leg pains, so she went to a trainer. She told the trainer, and the trainer told her to wear a knee brace, which she did, and told her to take Tylenol, which she did. Pat Varma told Dr. Kang afterwards, when Dr. Kang came to see her after the surgery, she told her that she had extreme leg pain, and Dr. Kang did nothing. Dr. Sklodowska will testify to the fact that Dr. Kang cuts corners, and that they don't follow hospital protocol. They will testify to the fact that they sent the report, and they told Dr. Kang about the report, but they didn't read it. Dr. Kang says that he doesn't remember this encounter with Dr. Sklodowska because the day was a blur. Dr. Albanez will testify to the fact that Dr. Kang was responsible for all care regarding Pat Varma during her stay at St. Hernias Hospital because they were the attending physician. Pat Varma didn't have a primary care physician. It was Dr. Kang's job to step up and help her. Dr. Albanez will also testify to the fact that as the attending physician, Dr. Kang should have recommended Pat to an oncologist, which they didn't do, and she should have read all of Pat Varma's chart, which again, she did not do. There were 2 drugs that were available that could have saved Pat Varma's life: givditamite and digoxin. None of these were given to Pat Varma, and today, she's dying. She's not expected to live past 2016. As the plaintiff, we understand that we bear the burden of proof, and we will meet this today. We ask you to rule Dr. King negligent we ask you to rule Dr. King negligent in the case of Pat Varma. No further questions.
Thank you. And again, I apologize. It's been a long time since I've been in a courtroom, but I do believe that we have our defense opening statement next. Very good. Okay. So would the lead defense counsel kindly stand up and identify yourself for the court?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Victoria Say, and before I begin, may I introduce my co-counsel.
Please.
This is Indira Audu,
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon.
Kiara Palomares,
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon.
and Jillian Bowden.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon. Okay, the 3 of you may be seated. Counsel, do you have any other stipulations or anything else to present to the court?
That is the only one.
Okay.
Before I begin, may I have permission to move around the court?
Yes, you may.
Good afternoon again, Your Honor. Again, my name is Victoria Say, and I'm here to represent the defendant, Dr. Samantha King. Now, this is a story about heroes. However, there are no villains, just victims of fate and fortune. On a warm April day in 2011, at a highly anticipated soccer game between rival schools, Pat Varma, the star striker for Geraldine Academy, collapsed after scoring the winning goal. Luckily for Miss Varma, the story in her life did not end there. Dr. King, watching the game, rushed out onto the field and saved Pat's life, administering CPR. Dr. King is the other hero in this story because she did not let Pat out of her sight until she knew Pat would live. Dr. King rode with Miss Varma at the ambulance to the hospital. Dr. King read the x-rays. Dr. King was a world-renowned cardiac thoracic surgeon, scrubbed up for surgery, and saved Pat's life again when her heart stopped twice on the table. Using a rare medical procedure, known only to a handful of surgeons in the world, Dr. King fixed her defective aortic valve. Dr. King is here before us today accused of medical malpractice, and yet she gave Miss Varma a new lease on life. Unfortunately, that new lease came with some conditions. Pat's very promising soccer career was over, and Miss Varma did not take that well. Like many scared and traumatized teenagers, she lashed out in anger against her friends and teammates. Were this not enough, Pat has been tragically diagnosed with cancer. Her anxiety and her fear and her mortality now push her to lash out even further in anger and hate. The plaintiff will have you believe that Dr. King did something wrong, that there was simply something Dr. King could have done. If only that were true, but sometimes bad things happen to good people. You wouldn't ask a plumber to change a light bulb or an electrician to fix a faucet. Why does the plaintiff think it is okay to ask a highly specialized cardiac thoracic surgeon about the diagnosis and treatment of a rare cancer? If you put a column of numbers in front of an accountant, they add. If you put a heart valve issue in front of a cardiac thoracic surgeon, they operate. And by the plaintiff's own expert witness, Dr. King did operate well. Every one of the plaintiff's witnesses can attest to that statement. The question for you today is, should or could Dr. King have done anything better for Ms. Varma? Not only is the answer no, but the answer is that nothing further was humanly possible. Not without subjecting Ms. Varma to unproven and dangerous experimental drugs still in clinical trials. It is simply not possible to diagnose a rare cancer by flipping through a 300-page record while your patient is dying on the operating table. This is simply not possible for anyone to diagnose a rare cancer when Ms. Varma took extraordinary steps to hide her symptoms, her team captain, her team trainer, her friends, her doctor, and the world. The question today here is, could anything better have been done for Pat? Tragically, the answer is no. And after you see the evidence today, you will have sympathy for Pat, but you will understand that Dr. King is a hero who did everything that was humanly possible under extraordinary conditions. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you. Okay. Counsel, would you like to call your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. My name is Attorney Jordan Corvishley, and I will be conducting the direct examination of Pat Varma. May I proceed?
Yes, you may.
I'd like to call Pat to the stand.
Ms. Varma, would you please raise your right hand? Wherever you'd like. Is the testimony that you are about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the rules of the Massachusetts mock trial, so help you God? Yes.
Good afternoon. Would you please state your name for the court? My name is Pat Varma. And where are you from? I'm from Amherst, Massachusetts. I live there with my parents. And where do you go to school? I currently go to UMass Amherst for foreign studies. Where'd you go to high school? I went to Darien Academy. And did you do any extracurriculars at Darien? I played varsity soccer my freshman year. And how was your soccer career? It was all right. During our third preseason scrimmage over the summer, I started having some really weird pains in my right leg and knee, and some pains in my chest. And what did you do about these pains? I told my parents. I talked to our school trainer, who advised me to ice it down, wear a brace, and just take extra strength Tylenol. And who else did you tell about your pain? I eventually told Dr. Kang after my surgery, but that was later.
So, what had happened after your fall this season?
Objection. This question calls for an narration.
I'm going to sustain that objection. Could you rephrase it, please, Counselor?
So, did anything else happen during your fall season?
Right after our third preseason scrimmage, Coach Jordan told me that I had made varsity.
And how was this varsity team?
They were all pretty excited, except for Lindsay, who was kind of mad that I took the position as starting striker.
And how was your career on the varsity team?
It was pretty good. At the end of the season, I was one of the top 5 scorers. I was the top scorer in our league, and I was a Glow Ball Scholastic by the end of the season.
And did you play any other soccer besides the fall?
Objection. Counsel is leading the witness.
I think I'm going to overrule that and allow the question. You may answer the question, Ms. Varma.
I did a bunch of youth soccer programs and leagues when I was little, and I've been playing soccer until my freshman year. I was a USA Today top 5 freshman prospect going to my freshman year, which is pretty exciting. And very exclusive schools will play soccer.
So, how did the rest of your varsity career go?
After the fall season was over, the rest of my soccer career was short-lived. I only got to play our first game in the spring season.
What happened at the first game?
Right after I scored the game-winning goal, I collapsed on the field and remember waking up in the hospital.
What happened when you woke up?
Dr. Kang told me that I had an defective aortic valve, and he asked how I was doing. She asked how I was doing and how everything was going. And that's when I told her about my leg pains and my chest pain. And she made a joke saying that if she drank as much as I was, she would be able to have chest pains too.
And who was Dr. Kang?
Dr. Kang was my attending physician.
Why was Dr. Kang your attending physician?
She was the one who performed my surgery, and she was also responsible for, she was responsible for me while I was at the hospital. She was in charge of making sure that if I needed medicines or referrals after the surgery, she was the one who's supposed to do all of that for me.
So, when were you discharged from Dr. Kang's care?
I was discharged April 11th in 2011.
And when did you enter Dr. Kang's care?
April 8th, that was the day of my surgery.
So, what happened after you were discharged?
I still had some chest pains, but I thought that they were recovery pains from the surgery. And I didn't do much about it until June of 2014.
What had happened in June of 2014?
I was
that was what was responsible for the pain in my leg and the pain in my chest. They also told me that it had been there since 2011.
How did they know that it had been there since 2011?
Apparently,
Objection, this question calls for speculation.
I'm going to sustain that objection. Would you please pursue another line of thinking?
What were you informed of about your cancer?
I was told that it had been there since 2011 and that it was terminal. I couldn't do anything about it anymore.
Who told you about your cancer in 2011?
The doctor at the hospital, and I talked to Dr. Sklodowska, who was the radiologist when I was in the hospital in 2011. She kept apologizing. It was really weird. But she was the one who kind of told me about everything that was going on, and she was the one who told me that it had been on the radiology report in 2011.
When did she tell you about your cancer?
2014.
Who told you in 2011?
No one.
Who was your doctor in 2011?
Dr. King.
And what did Dr. King tell you about the cancer?
Dr. King didn't tell me anything.
And were you referred, did you see any other doctors in 2011?
No, I didn't.
I have nothing further.
Thank you. Would you please remain, Ms. Varma? I invite counsel to cross-examine. Counsel for the defense to
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
cross-examine.
May I proceed?
Excuse me? Yes, you may.
Your Honor, if I could interrupt for a moment. The Lynn Television was saying they can't hear anything. So if we could move that microphone forward and the witness could testify in the middle.
Over here?
Yeah.
Move this one over here. I don't know if this moves.
Uh,
This won't move.
For the witness to testify at that microphone.
Oh, would you mind? Your leg is not bothering?
And then Kiara, if you could move this microphone up. So when the, yep, perfect. And to just try and speak into the microphone. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Ms. Farmer.
Good afternoon.
So you joined Dairyland soccer team in 2010, correct?
Yes, I did.
But early on, you began experiencing some pain, correct?
Yes, during the third preseason scrimmage.
And have you ever experienced pain like this before in soccer?
No, but I had grown 6 inches, so I just thought that they were growing pains. I thought they were normal.
But you were also experiencing some swelling, right?
Yeah, but swelling's normal when you play soccer or any strenuous, sport.
Why didn't you seek any medical attention?
I told my parents and I talked to my trainer, but I just hit a growth spurt. I had grown 6 inches and I was still growing, so I thought that that's what I had to do with it. I didn't feel the need to go to the doctor if I thought that they were growing pains.
But didn't the pain only get worse as the season went on?
Yeah, but I was still growing, so I thought that they were just really bad growing pains.
In fact, they were so bad that your father suggested you go seek medical attention, correct?
He suggested that I talk to a doctor if it got a lot worse, but yes, he did.
But weren't you scared to seek medical attention because you were scared to be put on the shelf?
Yeah, I made a really big deal about a sprained ankle when I was in 7th grade and I missed 2 games, and I didn't want that to happen with really exclusive schools looking at me and being a Global Scholastic and a top freshman prospect. I didn't want anything like that to happen again.
You were so afraid that you didn't tell your coach about the pain.
No, but I told my trainer and my parents. I told the people that I thought needed to know.
So who did you tell about the pain?
I told my parents, my school trainer, and Dr. Kang after my surgery.
Did your school trainer do anything about it?
He told me to wear a brace, take extra strength Tylenol, and to ice it down after games, but that's pretty much it.
Did that make the pain go away?
No, but I thought the Tylenol was helping a little bit.
But did it go completely away?
No, it didn't.
On April 8th, you collapsed during your soccer game, right?
Yes, I did.
And you were lucky enough to be treated by a world-renowned surgeon, Dr. King, correct?
Yes, I was. Dr. King saved my life on that day.
Dr. King told you you couldn't play soccer anymore, is this right?
Yes, he did.
But you continued to practice with the soccer team.
I did some really light workouts just to stay in shape, but yeah,
Do you
I became the team manager as well.
Do you often disregard your doctor's advice?
No, but light workouts are better than just staying home doing nothing. I thought I'd get worse just staying home, not doing anything.
What notable event happened on June 28, 2014?
I was shooting hoops with some friends, and the chest pains came back. So I asked my friends to call my dad, and my dad told me, called 911 and told me to go to the hospital. Well, I went to the hospital.
And prior to this, you've been experiencing some pain, correct?
Yeah, but I thought that they were just recovery pains from the surgery.
And unfortunately, when you were hospitalized, you found out you had cancer, correct?
Yes, I did.
And when you did find out, Dr. Skadowska approached you, correct?
Yes, she did.
And he kept apologizing, correct?
Yeah, she kept apologizing.
And you said that you found this odd, am I right?
Yes, I did.
Any further questions, Your Honor?
Thank you. Redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor.
Recross?
Very cross, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you very much. You may be excused. Counsel, would you please call your next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Again, my name is Riley Breen. I would like to call Marion Skladowska to the stand.
You may approach. Would you please raise your right hand? Is the testimony that you are about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the rules of the Massachusetts mock trial competition, so help you God?
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much. You may approach the microphone. Counsel, you may begin your direct questioning.
Thank you. Please tell us your name
My name is Marion Skladowska.
and what you do for a living.
I'm an osteopathic doctor specializing in radiology.
And what do radiologists do?
Well, we take x-rays and are responsible for interpreting the images and talking to the treating physician if we see anything.
And what does this do for the patients?
This ensures that everyone treating the patient knows what's going on.
And when did you first meet Dr. Kang?
Back in 2003,
And why did you encounter her?
I had a round on her cardiothoracic surgery.
And how was this round?
At first I was astonished by her, but then I realized that she cut corners a lot and didn't follow hospital protocol.
And how would she do this?
Well, there's a list of things that you're supposed to do when you work at a hospital, and she would kind of skip them sometimes.
Who was the radiologist for Pat Barma?
I was.
And what did you do for Pat Barma?
I took her x-rays.
And while you were taking her x-rays, what was Dr. Kang doing?
Dr. Kang was talking to other doctors about how she heroically saved her life.
And after these x-rays, what did you find?
I found that there was a 5.7 millimeter mass present in the patient's right lung.
And what did you do with this information?
I wrote it in my radiology report.
Your Honor, I have here page 30 of the mock trial materials, pre-marked Exhibit A, may be marked so for identification purposes only at this time.
Court will accept Exhibit A, which is a radiology report from St. Harney Medical Center in Amherst with an admission to an electronic signature date and time of 4/8/11 and 16:15. Done.
May I approach the witness?
Yes, you may.
What is this?
This is my radiology report.
And how do you know it's yours?
I wrote it?
And is it common practice to make radiology reports at St. Harney's Hospital?
Yes, it is.
Is it common practice to make radiology reports as a radiologist?
Yes, it is.
And did you make this radiology report at the time you were treating Pat Barma?
Yep.
May I retrieve the document?
Yes, you may.
At this time, I offer Exhibit A into evidence.
Court will accept it into evidence. And thanks, counsel, for the correction.
May I proceed?
Yes, you may.
What does this document state?
That there's a 5.7 millimeter mass present in the patient's lung.
And what should be done about it?
A biopsy to rule out malignancy.
Anything else?
Further clinical investigations.
And who was this written for?
Dr. Kang.
And who was Dr. Kang in relation to Pat Barma?
Pat Barma's treating physician.
And after you wrote this, what did you do with it?
I sent it electronically to Dr. Kang.
And what did you do the next day?
I followed up with Dr. Kang.
And what happened when you followed up with her?
She didn't even give me the time of day.
And what did you do?
I told her that there was a mass, and then I walked away.
And did Dr. Kang read this radiology report?
No, she did not.
Did she biopsy the mass?
No, she didn't.
Did she check for malignancy?
No.
Did she refer Pat Barma to anyone that could treat this mass?
No, she didn't.
After Pat Varma left the hospital, what happened?
She intended to sue me.
And what happened when she intended to sue you?
I decided to meet with the lawyer.
And what occurred in this meeting?
I talked to the lawyer and Pat, and we came to a conclusion that I was being wrongfully sued.
And why are you here today?
I'm here to testify truthfully about what happened.
So you're not lying.
No.
And again, did Dr. Kang read this radiology report?
Objection, Your Honor. This question has been asked and answered.
I'll sustain that.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. I'll invite defense counsel to cross-examine.
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Yes, you may.
Dr. Skodowska, you are familiar with Dr. Kang's work,
Yes, I am.
and when you were a resident, you worked with her.
I did.
And you testified that Dr. Kang treated a patient with Agazawi syndrome.
She did, a while ago.
And was Dr. Kang's judgment about the patient correct?
Can you repeat that?
Was Dr. Kang's judgment about the patient correct?
Yes.
But you criticized Dr. Kang for her actions.
I wanted her to follow hospital protocol, so yeah.
And she gave you a poor report.
She did.
Do you feel as though you were insubordinate to Dr. Kang?
No.
Do you resent Dr. Kang for giving you a poor report?
I don't resent her.
Didn't you switch your career path after what happened?
I switched it. I wanted to be more focused on the patient rather than myself.
And you said you've moved on.
I have.
Yet you still avoid Dr. Kang when you see him at the hospital.
Well, she doesn't come around much, but yeah.
And you were enraged by the fact that Dr. Kang saved someone's life.
Not that she saved someone's life. No.
Or were you jealous that she was getting attention
No.
for her actions?
I was more concerned that she was, kind of boasting about it.
Did you say in your affidavit that you thought the mass was benign?
I don't see why that matters, but yeah, maybe.
Did you say that the mass was benign in your affidavit?
How could I know it was benign? I'm not a cancer doctor.
But you did state in your affidavit that the mass was in fact most likely benign.
Most likely, but I wasn't sure.
And were you correct in your hypothesis?
No, it's not.
And this is the very mass that is killing Pat Varma as we speak.
Yes, it is.
After you took the radiology report, did you send it to Dr. Kang?
Yeah, I sent it electronically.
And you made sure she received it?
Yeah.
And you approached him about it? You approached
Yeah.
her about it?
Yeah, I approached her about it.
And you told her about the mass?
I told her that there was a mass.
Isn't it true that you walked away after Dr. Kang asked you to tell her about the mass?
I told her that there was a mass and then I walked away.
So if you really had the patient's best interest at heart, wouldn't you have stayed to tell her about the mass?
She didn't give me the time of day.
And when you approached Dr. Kang, what was she doing?
She was reading a patient's chart, I guess.
And are you sure that she understood the report you sent to her?
It was pretty straightforward.
Would it be fair to say that staying to tell Dr. Kang about the findings would have saved her life? Would have saved Pat Varma's life?
I did tell, so.
Is it true you said you feel responsible for Pat Varma's illness?
At that time I did, but now I realize I wasn't at fault.
And yet, a malpractice suit was filed against you, is that correct?
It's been resolved.
And you are here to testify today, so that suit will be dropped, is that correct?
I'm here to testify truthfully about what happened.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. We have a redirect.
No redirect, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. You may be excused. Counsel, would you like to call another witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff calls Dr. Alvanas to the stand. Again, my name is Jordan Clark, and I will be conducting the direct examination of Lacey Alvanas.
Dr. Alvanas, welcome. Would you please raise your right hand and answer to the following? Do you swear that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the rules of the Massachusetts Mock Trial Competition, so help you God?
I do.
May proceed, counsel.
Please state your name.
I'm Dr. DeLacy Alvanas.
And what is your profession?
I worked as attending physician throughout my whole career, and also I'm a professor and a medical researcher.
What do you specialize in?
I specialize in surgical oncology.
Where are you currently employed?
I currently work at Yale New Haven Hospital and Medical Center, and at the same time, I teach at Yale.
And did you render a medical opinion in regards to this case?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, I've here pages 34 and 35 of the mock trial materials, pre-marked Exhibit A for identification purposes only at this point.
Right here.
May I first witness?
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Do you know what this is?
Yes, it's my curriculum vitae.
Is all the information on this document correct as far as you know?
Yes, it is.
And is it regular practice to keep documents such as this in your field of work?
Yes.
What are your certifications?
I am National Board Certified as a medical examiner. Also, I am American Board Certified in both surgical oncology and cardiothoracic surgery.
And where did you receive your education?
I first went to Northeastern University to get my bachelor degree in pharmacy, and then I went to Tufts for medical school.
And in what states do you have medical licenses?
I'm medicalized in 3 different states, which are Massachusetts, Maryland, and Connecticut.
And how long have you been a physician and a doctor?
Over 20 years.
How long have you been an attending physician?
Also over 20 years.
And do you have any publications?
I do.
Could you tell us a few of these?
I wrote a chapter on bone tumors back in 2005, and I also wrote publications on bone sarcoma in children's cancer and soft tissue treatments in adults of sarcoma and osteosarcoma.
Your Honor, I offer Exhibit A into evidence. And I would also like to tender this witness as qualified to testify in the form of opinion in the field of oncology.
I will accept the witness's testimony.
Thank you, Your Honor. What did you do to prepare for this case?
I had to read Pat's entire medical record, which was 350 pages long, and it took me 4 hours to read it all.
And was there a radiology report in Pat Varma's chart?
Yeah, that was actually the first thing that I saw. It was the most present thing that was on the medical record, so yeah.
And you read this document, correct?
I did, yes.
And what did it say?
It says that Pat has a 5 to 7 millimeters mass in her right lung, and further investigation should follow.
Did you read any of the affidavits?
Objection,
No.
Your Honor. This question is leading.
I'll overrule that. I think it has some significant value in answering the question. Thank you. You may repeat the question.
Did you read any of the affidavits?
No, I did not.
And why is this?
Well, I wanted to form my own opinion first before I didn't want to be influenced by any of the affidavits from either the plaintiff's side or the defendant's side.
And was there anything specific you were asked to address?
Yes.
And what was this?
I was asked to address whether Dr. Kang deviated from the standard of care, and if so, would that have changed Pat's prognosis?
And what is the standard of care?
The standard of care is a set of protocols that all doctors need to follow.
And what does this describe?
It describes how an attending physician is fully responsible for for patients that are attending at the hospital.
And in your expert opinion, do you believe Dr. King deviated from the standard of care?
Yes, she did.
And why is this?
Well, Dr. Kang didn't fully read Pat's whole medical record, especially the radiology report. At the same time, she didn't do anything about Pat's complaint about her right chest and knee pain, and at the same time, didn't do any further investigations.
And did Pat Barma have a primary care physician?
No, she did not.
And was Dr. King responsible for all care regarding Pat?
Yes, she was the attending physician.
This question was leading.
going to sustain that. Would you please rephrase the question?
Is Dr. Kang responsible for Pat Varma's care during her stay at the hospital?
Yes,
Objection,
she
Your
was.
Honor. This is still a leading question.
I would ask, I am going to sustain that and ask that you rephrase the question, please.
Pat Varma did not have a primary care physician, correct?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor.
That's a
This
leading
is the-
question. I'll sustain that.
Was Dr. Kang responsible for care outside of the surgery?
Yes, as an attending physician.
And why is this?
Well, she was the attending physician. Again, it means that she was fully responsible for the patients full-time at the hospital.
And as the attending physician, what should Dr. Kang have done?
Dr. Kang should have been familiar with the radiology report, and at the same time, since she wasn't an expert at oncology or surgical oncology, she should have consulted with physicians.
And did Dr. Kang read all of Pat's chart?
No.
Objection, Your Honor. This calls for speculation.
I will sustain that.
You read all of the affidavits after forming your opinion, correct?
That's correct.
And you also read Dr. Kang's affidavit?
That's
Objection,
true.
Your Honor. This question is leading.
Would you please, I'll sustain that. Would you please rephrase the question?
Whose affidavits did you read?
I read everyone's affidavit after forming my own opinion.
And is there any evidence that Dr. Kang recommended Pat Varma to an oncologist?
No, not that I've known of.
Were there any treatments available for Pat Varma?
Yes, there were 2 drugs available called Notoxin and Gabdinamide, and using them would have helped her tremendously for her life expectancy to increase. She could have used it like occasionally, just because at the same time chemo wasn't that that known back then.
And were these approved by the FDA?
Yes, they were.
For what type of people?
For patients that has metastasized osteosarcoma.
And what type of cancer does Pat have?
Pat has metastasized osteosarcoma.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. I would invite defense counsel for cross-examination of this witness.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Again, my name is Jillian Bowden. May I proceed?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Dr. Albanis.
Good afternoon.
You host a seminar for attorneys called Doctors Are Not Above the Law, correct?
That's true.
How much of your annual income is designated for medical practice?
I mean, everyone gets paid as working because that's my job. But if you do want to know, I guess it's $500 per hour.
My question was, what is it designated for your annual income?
Objection? Relevance?
It shows how the witness has a financial incentive in this case.
I'm going to allow the question. I'm going to overrule the objection.
How much of your annual income is designated to medical legal work, Dr. Albanis?
Objection? More prejudicial than probative?
I'm going to sustain that, and I'd just ask counsel, I think I see the line of questioning that you're trying to pursue, and if you could just rephrase it slightly, I will overrule an objection. Just if you could rephrase that question, please.
Yes, Your Honor. A large majority of your income is designated to medical legal work, correct?
I guess you can say that.
How much money are you making on this case alone, Dr. Albanis?
Like I said earlier,
Objection? This is still more prejudicial than probative.
Under the circumstances of this case, I'm going to let this line of questioning pursue a little while. So overruled, and please continue.
Your Honor. How much money are you making on this case alone?
well, they provided me with $10,000. Yeah, and also a $500 per hour fee.
Dr. Ivanas, are you a doctor that makes a living out of suing doctors?
Can you repeat that question?
Are you a doctor that makes a living out of helping attorneys sue
Objection.
other doctors?
Prejudicial?
I'm going to sustain that objection.
Thank you.
Dr. Ivanas, is medical school expensive?
I guess you can say that.
Is that why you joined the Army to pay off such a high debt?
Well, I enjoy working for the government, so.
You graduated from Tufts University in 1982, correct?
That's correct.
Objection? Relevance?
I'm going to allow this line of questioning for the time being. I'm going to overrule that. Thank you.
You graduated from Tufts University in 1982, correct?
That's correct.
And the majority of your publications were in the 1980s, correct?
That's true.
Dr. Ivanas, did you hit your peak in the 1980s?
Excuse me?
Did you hit your peak in the 1980s?
Objection? Inventing facts not in evidence?
I'm going to sustain that. We don't need to go down that.
How long was Ms. Varma's hospital record, Dr. Ivanas?
How long has what?
How long was Ms. Varma's hospital record?
How long was it? It was 350 pages long.
How long did it take you to read Ms. Varma's chart?
4 hours.
Dr. Ivanas, would you leave a patient in critical condition for 4 hours?
I mean, Dr. Kang could have just read the radiology report because everyone can read that. It was 2 sentences.
Did you interview Ms. Varma before this case, for this trial?
Can you repeat that, please?
Did you interview Ms. Varma before this trial?
No, I formed my own opinion first before talking to her.
Did you read her affidavit?
After forming my own opinion, yes.
When did you interview Dr. Kang?
After forming my own opinion. I didn't talk to him directly, but I read his affidavit.
But did you interview Dr. Kang?
No.
Do you believe that Dr. Sklodowska gave Dr. Kang Pat's report?
Objection? This is causing for speculation?
I'm going to sustain that objection.
What drugs at the time of April 2011 you say could have treated Ms. Varma's cancer?
Natoxin and gabditamide.
Dr. Ivanas, when did you publish any articles on these drugs?
I mean, I had publications on bone tumors and stuff, and osteosarcoma, so I know that there was treatment available.
Yes, but did you have any publications on these drugs themselves?
Specifically,
Objection? The lack of publications is irrelevant.
I'm going to let the question continue. I'm going to overrule that objection.
Dr. Ivanas, when did you publish any articles on these drugs?
I didn't specifically publish any
On these drugs?
on these particular names of drugs.
Yes or no?
No.
Do you know if there were any during the time of Dr. Kang's so-called negligence?
There were drugs available. Yeah.
Do you know if there's any publications on these drugs?
Not that I've known of. I mean, they were approved by the FDA.
You're aware of the case Palangian versus Foster, correct?
Plain versus what?
It's a case where it says a physician cannot be held to a standard of care based on medical research and literature not in existence at the time of the alleged negligence. Are you aware of this?
Objection, Your Honor. This is not in the mock trial materials.
I think you're asking the witness to form a legal opinion, and I am going to sustain that objection.
Dr. Ivanas, you state that these drugs are promising, correct?
Yeah.
So you have no issue letting a young girl be a guinea pig for possible drugs?
She could have used it temporarily
Yes
until
or no,
chemo.
Dr. Ivanas?
Excuse me?
Yes or no?
Yes or no? Oh, wait, can you repeat the question again?
You have no issue with letting a young girl be a guinea pig for possible drugs?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
I invite plaintiff's counsel for redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Albanas, these drugs were FDA approved for people with metastasized osteosarcoma.
That's correct.
And Pat has, what type of cancer does Pat have?
Again, like I testified earlier, she has metastasized osteosarcoma.
And is it possible these drugs could have done anything to help Pat Varma?
Yes, it could have helped her increase her life expectancy temporarily until chemo was more known in 2014.
Thank you. Defense, recross.
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Albanas, these drugs, are they a certainty that they would have saved or prolonged Ms. Varma's life?
They were on clinical trials, so no.
So it was not a certainty,
It has a chance.
but is a chance a certainty?
No, not really.
No further questions.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you for your testimony. Any further witnesses from the plaintiffs?
No, the plaintiff rests, Your Honor.
Thank you. The plaintiff has rested. Therefore, we will move on to the defense's phase of the trial. Counsel, would you please call your first witness?
Your Honor, we'd like to call Lindsay De La Montagne to the stand.
Okay. Ms. De La Montagne, would you please raise your right hand? This is the testimony that you are about to give before this court, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, under the terms of the Massachusetts mock trial competition, so help you God. Okay. Thank you. You may begin, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. De La Montagne.
Good afternoon.
Please state your name for the court.
My name is Lindsay Del Montagne.
Where did you go to high school, Ms. De La Montagne?
I attended Darrellon Academy.
And where did you attend college?
I went to Boston College in 3 years instead of 4.
When did you first meet Ms. Varma?
Well, I first met Mrs. Varma when we played, we were signed up for swim classes together. We later played soccer all throughout our childhood, and we played soccer at Darrellon.
How did you guys get along?
Me and Pat were like family. We were very close friends.
When did Pat Varma start at Darrellon?
Pat started 2 years after me. She was in 9th grade. I was in 11th.
What position did she have on the team?
Pat took my position as starting striker on varsity.
How did you feel about this?
Not gonna lie, at first I was upset, but I dealt with it. Coach ended up making me captain.
How was Ms. Varma's playing during the season?
Pat is an exceptional player in spite of her coughing and clutching her chest.
When did you notice this?
I first noticed during our practices in the fall of 2010.
What did you do, if anything, when you noticed this?
I talked to Coach Duran, and she said if I was so concerned, I should talk to Pat myself, and I did.
What did Ms. Varma do when you tried to voice your concerns?
Pat got very defensive, stating that I should mind my own business and that I should stay out of her career because she was going to be a star.
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
Going to sustain that.
What happened during the first game of the spring soccer season?
We were playing against our longtime rivals, Martin Landing. Pat scored the winning goal, and then she collapsed.
What happened after that?
She was then rushed to the hospital and taken into surgery.
What happened after this?
Well, Dr. King asked me about Pat and her knee brace.
Why did you not tell Dr. King that Ms. Varma was experiencing knee and leg pain?
Well, I never heard from Pat about her leg pain. Also, I didn't think it was that great.
What did you do, if anything, when Ms. Varma was in the hospital?
I commonly went to visit her.
Did anyone else come by?
Dr. King.
Why were you not asked to leave when Dr. King came into the room?
Well, when she asked, Pat said we were like family, and anything that she said in front of her, she could say to me.
What did you notice about the interaction between Dr. Kang and Pat Varma?
Dr. Kane seemed like a genuinely concerned doctor. He asked if she was completing with their homework and if the team had missed her.
And how did Ms. Varma seem?
Pat seemed generally excited to get back down the field.
What did Ms. Varma say about her pain?
Pat mentioned that her general pain was a 2 out of 10, but she still thought she was going to play.
Hearsay.
I'm going to sustain that. Would you please?
Was there a conversation about Ms. Varma's pain?
Yes.
How did Ms. Varma seem during this conversation?
Well, as I said, she seemed generally excited to get back on the field. Not in a lot of pain.
What did Pat Varma mention about chest pain symptoms during the season, if anything?
Absolutely
Objection,
nothing.
Your Honor. Once again, hearsay.
Could you narrow the question, please? I'll sustain that.
Did you hear Pat Varma say anything about chest pains during the season?
No.
Did you hear Pat Varma say anything about knee pain or leg pain during the season?
No.
What happened after this conversation with Dr. Kang and Pat Varma?
Well, I went to Dr. King because I was shocked that Pat didn't tell him, and he eased my concerns because, after all, he had just fixed that problem.
What was your relationship like with Pat Varma after she left the hospital?
It was never really the same. I guess Pat was spreading rumors around BC coaches.
How did you feel about this?
I was upset, but it was okay.
Why are you here today testifying against your old friend, Ms. Delamonte?
Well, Pat is my best friend, and it hurts, but I'm thankful that I'm my best friend here today because Dr. King saved her life.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Counsel, cross-examination?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Once again, my name is Mark Munoz, and I'll be conducting the cross-examination of Ms. De La Montagne. May I proceed? Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Lizzie.
Good afternoon.
So, you grew up with Pat, is that correct?
Yes.
You played soccer with Pat?
Yes.
And how was your relationship on the field with Pat?
Me and Pat were always great friends.
You also noticed that she was always clutching her chest.
Yes, I did.
And you saw this always happen, is this true?
Well, I noticed during our practice of fall 2010.
But when you guys were playing, you saw this always happen.
Oh, yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. Did you tell anyone about this?
Yes, I did. I told Coach Duran and Pat herself.
And what did Coach Durant tell you?
Objection, Your Honor. This calls for hearsay.
Going to sustain that.
Okay. And did you tell Dr. Kang about this?
Objection, Your Honor. This again calls for hearsay.
This is just stating that if she actually told the truth to Dr. Kang?
I'm sorry. You're asking the witness
If she
what the
told-
witness heard from somebody in a direct conversation.
Yeah, if she told Dr. Kang personally about the clutching of the chest that Pat had.
Okay, I'm going to overrule that objection.
Could you please repeat the question?
Did you tell Dr. Kang that why Pat Varma was clutching her chest?
No, but it didn't seem like it was that great. Pat never told me herself.
You also noticed that Pat was wearing a knee brace.
Yes, I did. It was very common on our team.
And the trainer did inform you that Pat had pain,
Yes, some pain.
but she still had pain, is that correct?
Some pain.
And you stated that you thought the pain was not a big deal.
Well, the trainer did
Objection,
tell me.
Your Honor.
I think we're getting into Pat's sensations rather than the witness's observations. So I'm going to sustain that objection.
Okay. And did you tell Dr. Kang why Pat was wearing a knee brace?
Well, no, but I didn't seem, well, it was common for our players to wear it, so I didn't think of it as such a big need to tell the doctor.
And were you honest with Dr. King?
Yes.
And you are testifying today that you were honest with Dr. King.
Yes, I didn't think it was a big enough deal to tell him about the knee brace.
So you didn't know that the knee brace could have done something with her cancer?
No, I don't have enough medical knowledge to know that it would.
Okay. And you're testifying today that the prosecution and defendant, the court and the judge will use your answer for reliable purposes?
Yes.
Do you remember writing an affidavit for this case?
Yes.
Do you remember writing it truthfully and honest in your own words?
Objection, Your Honor. How is this relevant?
I think that the terms of the affidavit speak for themselves, and they are said under pains of penalties of
Yeah.
perjury. So, okay, we'll overrule that. I'm sorry, we'll sustain that.
And do you remember signing the affidavits under the pains of perjury?
Yes.
And you remember that you could have changed your answer anywhere up to this date?
Yes.
Like change your affidavits up to this date?
Objection, Your Honor. Again, how is this relevant?
The affidavit, the court will accept the affidavit, has accepted the affidavit, and will have the affidavit speak for itself. Sustained.
Your Honor, I have here pages 41 and 42 of the mock trial materials. They marked.
Yes, they may be bumped.
Is that correct? Yes. So if you can bring it up to me, please, to read lines 7 to 8, 11 and 10.
He's going to ask you about 7, 10, and 11.
10, 11. Okay, thank you.
May proceed.
Can you please read paragraph 7, lines 7 through 8 to the court?
A few of the other players on the team also wear braces on their legs and or knees, and the trainer later told me that Pat had complained about some knee pain and swelling, so he suggested Pat wear one too.
All right, and can you please read paragraph 10, lines 7 through 8?
7 through 8.
Yes, yes, please.
And then the doctor then asked if I knew why Pat was wearing a knee brace. I told the doctor that a few players on the team wore braces, and the trainer must have given one Pat to prevent any injury since Pat was the starting striker.
And can you read paragraph 11, just the first sentence?
I was honest with the doctor all year long. I was honest with the doctor.
So you did not tell Dr. King about the pain?
No, I didn't think it was a big enough deal.
So you weren't honest with Dr. King?
Your Honor, counselor has run out of time.
I'm going to sustain that objection.
All right, thank you, Your Honor.
Do you want
Thank
your
you.
pages back? Here.
Redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. De La Montagne, did you feel as though you did everything you could to help Pat Varma?
Yes, and even so, nobody thought it was that big of a deal. Everybody thought Pat was fine.
And are you a doctor?
No, I'm not.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Recross?
Yes, Your Honor. You stated that you didn't think that the pain was a big deal.
Objection, Your Honor. This is beyond the scope of the redirect.
I'm sustaining that.
All right. So were you honest with Dr. King?
Objection, Your Honor. This is beyond the scope.
Sustained. Okay.
Thank you. No more further questions.
Thank you. You may be excused. Thank you. You may call your next witness.
The defense calls Dr. Sal Stack to stand, please.
Dr. Stack. Right hand is the testimony you're about to give before this court. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the rules of the Massachusetts mock trial competition. So help you God.
Yes.
And may I proceed? Thank you. Please state your name for the court, please.
Dr. Sal Stack.
And what is your educational background?
After graduating from high school, I attended Connecticut College, from where I received a bachelor's degree in biology. I then attended the Northwestern University of Feinberg School of Medicine, in Chicago, Illinois, from which I graduated in 1999.
And where did you complete your residency?
I spent 5 years as an intern and resident at the University of Virginia Medical Center.
And what is your profession now?
I'm a physician specializing in surgical oncology, and since 2007, I've been board certified.
Madam, may I approach the opposing counsel?
Yes, you may. Yes, you may. Okay, what we have is curriculum vitae of Dr. Sal Stack, marked for identification purposes.
Can you identify this document?
This is my curriculum vitae.
And is it a fair and accurate representation of it?
Yes, it is.
And is that your signature at the bottom?
Yes.
Can you list some of your publications?
Yes, I have several publications. One in particular to this case is False Hope, a statistical analysis concerning the efficacy of experimental drugs in the treatment of metastatic cancer.
Your Honor, I would like to enter this as Exhibit A.
Court will accept it as exhibit. Thank you.
Welcome.
What are some of your professional activities?
I spend approximately 75% of my time in clinical practice, and the remainder of my time directing and participating in oncology research. I'm also a member of the Medical Records Practices Committee, and since 2012 I've been the co-chair.
Your Honor, I move to qualify Dr. Sal Stack as an expert witness in surgical oncology.
Court will accept this witness as an expert witness.
Doctor, what have you done to prepare for this case?
I initially spoke with Dr. King and Lindsay Delamontagne personally, and I also reviewed the affidavits of Dr. D. Lacey Albanis along with Pat Varma. In addition to this, I also reviewed the medical records of Pat Varma, which exceeded over 300 pages and took me over 10 hours to review.
And after reviewing everything, can you please tell us some of your conclusions?
In my conclusion, Dr. King did not deviate from the applicable standard of care necessary for the treatment of Pat Varma, and even if she had, this alleged departure would not have caused any cognizable harm to Pat Varma.
In your opinion, why hasn't Dr. King reached the standard of care?
Because the duty of Dr. King was to treat Pat Varma's defective heart, and she was successful in her surgery.
During Varma's recovery of the surgery, what was expected of Dr. King?
Well, Dr. King is a specialist in cardiology and is not expected to...
Beyond the scope of the witness is not an expert in hospital protocol.
I'm going to sustain that objection.
Reasonable to infer that since he is a practicing physician, he knows standard protocol.
But she asked him to give an
Counsel, may I have a sidebar, please? I'm going to sustain that objection. You may continue with your direct examination of the witness.
Assuming the mass was to be malignant in 2011, what treatment options were available?
There were 2 experimental drugs, Nitosin and gibdidamine, that were still in clinical trial.
And what is your expert opinion on the drugs and their presumed impact.
In my opinion, these two drugs would not...
Objection. Beyond the scope of the witness, this isn't surgical oncology.
It deals with the treatment of the cancer, and he is an expert in surgical oncology.
But not in all-around oncology. Surgical oncology is different than an oncologist.
I am going to allow the questioning because the expert, it is certainly a corollary to the surgery. There can be concurrent care with both the drugs and the surgery, and he has in fact co-authored a publication regarding these drugs, and I am therefore going to allow the question. And if you need it repeated, the counsel will repeat it for you.
What is your expert opinion on the drugs and their presumed impact?
In my opinion, these two drugs would not have prolonged the life expectancy of Pat Varma. And although one can hope, there's yet no basis to conclude that even had these drugs been certified for adults, that they would also work for adolescents.
And doctor, is this type of cancer common?
No. So hypothetically speaking, if Pat Varma had told Dr. King of the leg pain that she was experiencing, which is not my opinion, then osteosarcoma is rare enough in adolescents that it should not be considered a likely cause for routine leg pain in an adolescent athlete.
So if Dr. King is not the person to blame here, who is?
In my opinion, it is the responsibility of the radiologists who discovered the mass, in this case Marian Skłodowska, to take further action, and it can't be the fault of a specialist in cardiology.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay. Thank you. The witness is yours to cross, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Once again, my name is Jordan Clark, and I will be conducting the cross-examination of Dr. Salstack.
You may proceed.
Good afternoon, Dr. Stack.
Good afternoon.
You're a physician, correct?
Yes.
And you specialize in surgical oncology.
Yes.
And you yourself have been a defendant in a malpractice suit, correct?
Objection, relevance.
I'm going to sustain it. This is part of his credibility. It will go toward the extent of his credibility as an expert witness, so I'm going to allow the question.
You yourself have been a defendant in a malpractice suit, correct?
Yes, however, this matter was resolved.
But you've never testified in any case beside your own, is that correct?
This is my first time.
Before conducting your investigation, you spoke to Dr. King,
Yes.
and you also spoke to Lindsay Delamontagne.
Yes.
But you didn't speak to Pat Varma,
I did not, but I
and
did...
you didn't speak to any of the plaintiff's witnesses.
I did review their affidavits, though.
But you didn't speak to them directly like you did your
Objection,
witnesses.
asked and answered.
Sustained.
You did this to gain an understanding of the situation,
Yes.
and you didn't speak to any of the plaintiff's witnesses.
I reviewed their affidavits. I believe that was enough.
But you didn't speak to them.
No.
Objection,
Ask and
asked
answer. Yes. Sustained.
You're aware that Dr. Skłodowska testifies to telling Dr. King directly about the mass, correct?
Could you repeat the question?
You're aware that Dr. Skłodowska testifies to have telling Dr. King directly about the mass, correct?
Objection, the counselor is testifying.
This is cross-examination. I'm going to let it be a little broad, so I'm going to overrule that objection. You may proceed.
You're aware that Dr. Skłodowska testifies to have telling Dr. King about the mass, correct?
Yes, however, Dr. King has denied hearing any such statements.
And you're aware that Lindsay Delamontagne also testifies to having told Dr. King about her concerns regarding Pat, correct?
Yes.
And you assume that these statements weren't made.
Yes.
And you're aware that Pat Varma did not have a primary care physician, correct?
Could you repeat that?
You're aware that Pat Varma did not have a primary care physician.
Yes.
And you're aware that Dr. King was the attending physician.
Yes. However, it was critical for him to proceed with the surgery.
But she was there for 3 days, correct?
Yes.
And he was her attending physician for all 3 days, correct?
Correct, but he was only required to provide specialized care.
But as attending physician, it makes him responsible for all care regarding Pat, correct?
I believe it would have been a better job for a primary care physician to have observed this.
But Pat Varma did not have a primary care physician, correct?
That's true.
And Dr. King was the attending physician.
Yes.
and this makes him responsible for all care regarding Pat during her stay at St. Hernandez Hospital.
Yes.
You're aware of the standard of care,
Yes.
and you're aware that this entails that attending physician is responsible for recommending any further clinical investigation, correct?
Correct. However, I didn't think that Dr. King had to take further action in this case.
It was recommended, correct?
It was recommended.
And you're aware that all doctors must follow the protocol of the standard of care.
Yes.
And you're aware that this requires reading all of Pat Varma's chart, correct?
Yes, but however, as I mentioned, her medical records exceeded over 300 pages, so it would be impractical for Dr. King to review them while his patient is on the operating table.
But Pat Varma was at the hospital for 3 days, correct?
Yes.
That is sustained.
Is it possible for Dr. King to have read the, is it reasonable to expect that Dr. King could have read that 2 sentences in the radiology report after Dr. Sklodowska told him?
Objection, this calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Did Dr. King read all of Pat Varma's chart?
Objection, lack of personal knowledge.
This witness spoke
Sustained.
to Dr. King directly.
Could you repeat the question?
This is out of the mock trial.
Would you please rephrase the question?
Yes.
Thank you.
By your knowledge, did Dr. King read Pat Varma's chart?
No.
And you claim that he wasn't expected to do that, despite the standard of care.
At that moment, I didn't think it was necessary.
Would it have been necessary in any of the 3 days she was at the hospital?
I believe that Dr. King met the standard of care necessary, and he did save Pat Varma's life.
Your Honor, I'd like to render this witness unresponsive. He's not answering the question.
Would you please answer the question, Doctor?
Could you repeat the question?
Was Dr. King responsible for reading Pat Varma's chart during her 3-day stay at St. Hernandez Hospital?
Yes.
And in the standard of care, it states that a doctor is required to follow up on any findings.
Yes.
And did Dr. King do this?
No.
Was he responsible for recommending Pat to an oncologist?
Objection, this is beyond the scope.
I'm going to allow the question overruled.
Was he responsible for recommending Pat to an oncologist?
I don't think so.
According to the standard of care, an attending physician is responsible for any further clinical investigation given, correct?
I believe that a primary care physician would have been better for recommending Pat Varma.
But Pat didn't have a primary care physician, did she?
No.
Are you aware that the drugs that Dr. Alvana say may have saved Pat Varma's life were approved for people with metastasized osteosarcoma?
Yes, but
And
they
Pat
were
has metastasized osteosarcoma.
They-
Argumentative.
Overruled. It's fine.
And Pat has metastasized osteosarcoma.
Yes, however, she is an adolescent, and it has not yet been proved to work for adolescents.
But Pat does have metastasized osteosarcoma.
She does.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Defense like to redirect?
Yes, may I proceed?
Yes, you may.
Were Natosin and Gibdamide proven to be effective?
No, they were still in clinical trial, and they were experimental drugs.
Recross?
Yes, Your Honor. The drugs, Natoxin and Gibditamide, were approved for people with metastasized osteosarcoma.
For adults.
For anyone with metastasized osteosarcoma.
However, but there is no guarantee that they will work.
But there was a chance they could have worked, correct?
Small chance.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Counsel, you may call your next, I'm sorry. Stop being you are excused. Thank you.
Thank you.
For your testimony, counsel, you may call your next witness.
Your Honor, the defense would like to call Dr. King to the stand.
Doctor? Raise your right hand, Doctor. Is the testimony that you are about to give the whole truth, nothing but the truth, under the rules of the the Massachusetts mock trial competition. So help you God.
Yes.
Thank you. You may take the stand. You may proceed.
Good afternoon, Dr. Kang.
Good afternoon.
Please state your name for the court.
My name is Dr. Samantha W. Kang.
And where do you currently reside?
I currently reside at 45 Market Street, Alexander, Massachusetts.
What is your occupation?
I am a cardiothoracic surgeon.
What is your educational background?
I attended Boise State University my freshman year of college, and then Syracuse University from second to fourth year.
And where did you attend medical school?
I attended medical school at Johns Hopkins University.
When did you make the decision to become a heart surgeon?
During my second year of medical school.
And where did you complete your residency?
I completed my residency at Beth Israel Medical Center in Boston.
And where did you go after your residency?
I was honored to earn a fellowship with Dr. Rudy Hurwitz at Betz Medical Center.
And what did you learn during your fellowship?
I learned cutthroat techniques and intelligent, high standard procedures from her, but I mostly learned how to be humble.
And where do you practice now?
Where
do you work now?
Oh, I have been working at St. Harness Medical Center for over 15 years.
What happened on April 8th, 2011?
I was attending my nephew Cameron's soccer game, and Cameron was on Pat's team.
And what incident occurred?
Pat scored the winning goal, and then after she collapsed on the ground.
And what did you do upon seeing Pat collapse?
I quickly rushed to her side to help her.
And what did you notice about Pat?
She wasn't breathing.
So how did you go about treating her?
I quickly performed CPR and used the automated external defibrillator.
And what happened next?
The EMTs came and they carried her into the ambulance, and I went along with her.
What did Pat seem to be suffering from?
For my experience of 15 years of cardiothoracic surgery, it seems she was suffering from a defective heart valve.
And what was your actual diagnosis?
The actual diagnosis of her? She had aortic valve stenosis.
And was your hypothesis correct?
Yes, it was.
How did you go about treating Pat in the hospital?
I quickly rushed her into surgery, and I used the Gelb-Bicknell procedure.
What did you do in preparation for surgery?
I read through her chart.
And what, if anything, did you notice about Pat's chart?
I did not notice a large mass in her chart.
How successful was the surgery?
It was long and difficult. Her heart stopped twice, but it was successful, and it ended at 11:45 p.m.
When was your next encounter with Pat Varma?
It was the next day because as her attending physician, I gave her a visit.
And what happened during this encounter?
I asked how she was feeling, and she said she was feeling fine.
Objection, this is hearsay.
I'll sustain that.
And when was your next encounter with Pat Varma after this one?
Before she was discharged.
And what happened then?
I had to break down that she couldn't play competitive soccer anymore, and she begged, saying that she was fine
Objection,
and everything.
this is also hearsay.
Your Honor, this statement was made for the purpose of medical diagnosis and treatment, so.
Your Honor, this is not an exception to, a mock trial exception to the rule of hearsay.
All right, I'm going to sustain that objection.
Thank you.
Oh, where was I? What happened after Pat was discharged? When was your next encounter with Pat Varma?
That was my last encounter.
And when did you find out about Pat's cancer?
I found out in 2014.
And how did you feel when you found out about Pat's cancer?
I was completely devastated, but I realized that I did all that I could to save her life 3 years ago.
How familiar are you with Dr. Skidowska?
I've had a few run-ins with Dr. Skidowska, starting with when I gave her a negative evaluation during her residency.
And what is your response to her claim that she told you about the mass in Pat's lung?
That is a blatant lie. She never came to me.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination of the witness.
Yes, Your Honor. Once again, my name is Jordan Corbishley, and I'll be conducting this cross-examination. May I proceed?
Yes, you may.
Good afternoon, Dr. King.
Good afternoon.
So when you were younger, you were a soccer player just like Pat was, right?
Yes, I was.
And you were great at it as well.
Yes, I was good enough to earn a scholarship at Boise State University.
And so you had these big dreams just like Pat did. Right,
Yes. Sports was my passion.
Doctor? So sports was your passion. You even said in your affidavit that you loved soccer so much you would sometimes lie about your pain so that the coach wouldn't bench you at games.
Objection, Your Honor. This question is not relevant to the case at hand.
I'm going to overrule that. I
Thank you.
will let you continue with that.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
So you loved soccer so much that you stated in your affidavit that you would sometimes lie to your coach so that you were not benched from games. You would lie about your pain.
Yes, because there were small sprains or twists.
But you would still lie about your pain so that you were not benched.
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered.
The question was asked, Your Honor, but it was not answered.
I will overrule that. Please answer the question
Yes.
directly.
Thank you. So you were at the soccer game the day that Pat collapsed,
Yes, I was.
and you accompanied her to the hospital,
Yes.
and you performed her surgery,
Yes, I did.
which ended at about 11:45 p.m.
Yes, I did.
That's pretty late, right, Doctor?
Yes, it's very late.
And you'd said that you'd gone home and you didn't sleep very well that night.
Yes, that's correct.
And you're up in the hospital the next morning, bright and early.
Yes.
You say that that next day was a blur.
Yes, I was being pulled in like a million directions.
So you were very busy,
Yes, I was.
but you still made time to go talk to Pat Varma.
Yep, as her attending physician, I did.
Are you aware that Pat Varma testified today to telling you about her pain?
No.
So you didn't hear in court today? Pat said that she
Yes,
testified?
I did.
But you don't remember this happening.
No, she did not tell me about any pain or anything in her legs.
The question was if you remembered it happening.
No.
And you are also aware that Lindsay testified today to having a conversation with you.
Yes.
But you don't remember what was said at the conversation.
Yes, that's correct.
Are you aware that Dr. Sklodowska testified to approaching you about Pat's mass?
Objection, Your Honor. This line of questioning deviated from Dr. King's testimony.
I'm sorry, would you please restate your reasons for the objection?
This line of questioning has deviated from Dr. King's testimony.
I'm going to sustain that.
Did you hear in court today Dr. Sklodowska testify to approaching you about the mass?
Yes.
And you say that this did not happen.
Yes, that's correct.
And that day was a blur, wasn't it, Doctor?
Yes, but Dr. Sklodowska would have informed me before.
That day that you spoke to Dr. Sklodowska, you said in your affidavit that it was a blur. You don't remember
I
it.
did not speak with Dr. Sklodowska that day.
You don't remember that day, Doctor. You stated in your affidavit.
I said it was a blur, but that doesn't mean I did not remember all of it.
It's a blur. That means that you did not remember it.
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel is being argumentative.
Yes. And sustained.
So you state that you didn't read Pat's radiology report because you didn't have any time,
Yes, that's correct.
because she was in critical condition.
Yes, that's correct.
Do you mind if I reference Exhibit A? It's in evidence.
Can go right ahead. Do you need it back? They're actually all marked exhibit A, but that's okay.
May I approach the witness?
Yes, you may.
A 5 to 7 millimeter mass of uncertain origin is present in the patient's right lung. Biopsy and further clinical investigation is recommended to rule out malignancy.
So how long do you think that took you to read?
Like 30 seconds.
And so you didn't have 30 seconds that day?
Well, her whole medical record was 350 pages. I didn't have time to read all of that.
I'm not asking about the medical record, Doctor. I'm asking about what you just read, the radiology report.
I read the report up to her heart because that's what I needed to fix at that time.
You're a cardiothoracic surgeon, correct, Doctor?
Yes, I am.
So you deal with the cardio aspect, which is the heart, and the thoracic aspect.
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor. This question is beyond the scope of mock trial rules and testimony.
I'm going to overrule that and allow the questioning. You may proceed, and you may answer the question.
Would you like me to repeat it?
Yes, please.
So you deal with the thoracic aspect of surgery, right, doctor?
Yes.
And so could you just tell us what the thoracic region is?
Objection, Your Honor. This evidence is not found in the mock trial rules.
It would seem as though, and I would have to ask the coaches, but I'm going to sustain the objection. I do understand where counsel is going, but I have to stay within the parameters of the rules of this court.
So, doctor, the thoracic region is the lungs, and Pat's tumor was in her lungs, right, doctor?
Yes, it was.
So, as a cardiothoracic surgeon, a surgeon specializing in the heart and the lungs, you didn't feel that that was your responsibility?
I felt like my responsibility was to repair her heart valve defect.
So, as a cardiothoracic surgeon, you didn't feel responsible for Pat's lungs?
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel is being argumentative.
I'm going to overrule that and allow the witness to answer.
Can you repeat the question, please?
As a cardiothoracic surgeon, you didn't feel responsible for taking care of Pat's lungs?
I felt responsible for repairing her heart that day.
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel has run out of time.
There were some overruled objections, if I may have.
I'm going to allow another minute.
I would also like to render the witness as non-responsive to my question about Pat's lungs.
Why don't you proceed with your question, and we'll go from there.
So, should I proceed with the last question?
Yes.
So, as a cardiothoracic surgeon, you didn't feel responsible for caring for Pat's lungs?
As a cardiothoracic surgeon, I fixed her heart. So,
Did you fix Pat's lungs?
no.
And on that radiology report that you read, it also says that biopsy is recommended for Pat's mass, correct?
Correct.
Did you biopsy the mass?
No, I did not.
It says that further clinical investigation is recommended. Did you further clinically investigate it?
No, I did not.
And did you recommend Pat to a physician that could treat her?
No, I did not.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you. Would counsel like to redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may approach. You may proceed.
Dr. King, what is your field of specialty?
Cardiothoracic surgery.
And what was Pat suffering from on the day she collapsed?
An aortic valve stenosis.
And did you successfully repair her condition?
Yes, I did.
And did you save Pat's life?
Yes, I did.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Recross?
Yes, Your Honor.
So you repaired Pat's aortic valve stenosis,
Yes.
but we're here today to talk about the cancer in Pat's lungs.
Objection, Your Honor. This goes beyond the scope of my redirect examination.
The redirect was just related to the heart, and so I'm going to limit the recross to the questions related to the heart condition. So I'll sustain that objection.
Nothing further than, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Would the defense have any more witnesses to present to this court?
Defense rests. Thank you.
Okay. And again, I have to profess a certain amount of ignorance of mock trial rules, so we do have closing statements starting, and I do believe that it's time to call up the first person presenting the closing statement. And if the coaches could maybe tell me if that would be the defense or the plaintiffs. I'm sorry? That's what I thought. Thank you, sir. I'll call upon the defense then to please approach and present your closing statement to the court.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Honor, I am sure you've heard stories of athletes who do whatever they can to stay on a team. They may have skipped meals, chosen practice over homework, or played through pain. You must ask yourself, however, when does it go too far? Is it too much when a world-renowned surgeon is being sued for malpractice? One with many years of success is being falsely accused of malpractice today. The answer is yes. A doctor who has done nothing wrong is before you today, is an accuser before you today by the false claims of the plaintiff, Pat Varma. In the case of negligence, the plaintiff must prove duty, breach, and causation. If one element is disproven, then the case fails. Unfortunately for the plaintiff, all the elements are unproven. My client, Dr. Kang, rushed onto the soccer field and saved the life of Pat Varma on April 8, 2011. Ms. Varma had no pulse and was not breathing. She was dead. Kang immediately began administering CPR and called for a defibrillator. 2 shocks later, a once lifeless Pat Varma now had a pulse, thanks to my client. Dr. Kang rushed to the hospital with Ms. Varma to ensure her safety. After analyzing x-rays next to the patient's bed, Dr. Kang was able to diagnose the patient with an aortic valve stenosis and rushed Ms. Varma into surgery immediately, without a second to lose. Ms. Varma's heart stopped 2 more times during surgery, and using the Gleb-Bignell procedure, a procedure which only a handful of surgeons know, Dr. Kang was able to save the life of the patient. Dr. Kang followed up not once, but twice after surgery, and none of those times included any mention of pain in Pat Varma's legs or short of breath. My client clearly completed his duty as a doctor, hence destroying the plaintiff's claim of an incomplete duty. Negligence is about what the defendant knew or should have known. How can anyone expect Dr. Kang to have known about leg pain when Pat Varma went to such extraordinary measures to hide her symptoms from everyone, from her coach, from her team captain, from her doctors, and the world? We have heard the defense's claim of a breach to the testimony of Dr. Skrzydlska. Dr. Skrzydlska claims that he approached my client, informing him of a mass in Pat Varma's lung, and he claims that he approached my patient to inform him that there was a report that needed to be read. He approached my client while he was reading another patient's chart. My client put aside the chart and asked Dr. Skrzydlska to tell him about the mass, but he did not have the decency to stay and let my client know about the mass. If Dr. Skrzydlska truly had Pat Varma's health in his best interest, then he would have stayed to explain himself. A 2-minute conversation could have saved the life of a young girl. If Skrzydlska hadn't been holding a petty grudge against Dr. Kang from his residency, then Pat Varma would have lived to walk down the aisle at her wedding. She would have lived to graduate from college. She would have lived to see her future children do what she loved most in the world, which is playing soccer. If Dr. Skrzydlska, who was sued by Pat Varma, had not been so vain, he wouldn't have abandoned his duty to diagnose and identify the medical condition. Nothing that my client has done has caused any harm to Pat Varma, thus eliminating the cause of causation. Today we have heard Saul Stack testify that Varma's medical records totaled over 300 pages and took more than 10 hours to review. Dr. Kang had 2 options. She could either read the entire chart and let valuable time go by, or take action and save life. Your Honor, if you were on the operating table, would you want to wait 10 hours to receive treatment, or would you want to get the expert treatment you need when you need it? The plaintiff would have you believe that good procedure is flipping through a 300-page phone book while your patient is on the operating table, unattended. Today we have heard a testimony from Dr. Alvanis. He has proposed that 2 drugs could have saved the life of Pat Varma. 2 drugs that have not been proven to work. All that Dr. Alvanis can say is that they're promising. Promising is not good enough. Pat Varma should not be a guinea pig for experimental drugs at a young age. In the case of Harlow versus Chin, it states that in order to create a valid medical malpractice case based on negligence, there must be a physician-patient relationship, a duty which is not backed by good medical practice, breach of that duty, and an injury caused by the breach. As you have heard today, Your Honor, there is no breach by my client. Dr. Kang went above and beyond for Pat Varma. The plaintiff holds the burden of proof today and must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that my client, Dr. Kang, is guilty, and that his guilt has not been proven today. Your Honor, I hope that today you side with justice and find my client, Dr. King, not guilty. Thank you.
Thank you. Counsel?
Yes, good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Jordan Corberstein. I'll be conducting the closing argument on behalf of the plaintiff. May I proceed?
Yes, you may.
Your Honor, this is a case about negligence. The failure to exercise the due care that a normal person would exercise, and the deviation by Dr. King from the standard of practice. Dr. King neglected Pat in her time of need when she failed to listen to her complaints of pain, when she failed to read Pat's radiology report, and she failed to diagnose a tumor in Pat's lung. This lack of diagnosis, the discharge of Pat after only 3 days in the hospital, it led to Pat having an undiagnosed malignant tumor in her lungs that's leading to her death today. This case is not about how well Dr. King did in that surgery. It's not about if he saved her life heroically on the soccer field, because we're not here to talk about Pat's heart or Dr. King's heroism. We're here to talk about the cancer. As a plaintiff, we know that we do bear the burden of proof today, and we have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt by a preponderance of the evidence that Dr. King was negligent, and we believe that we have done so today. We brought forth 3 witnesses. The first one was Pat Varma. She testified that she told her coach about her cancer. She told her she told her coach about her pain. She told her parents about her pain. She told her trainer about her pain. She was not trying to hide it by any means. She was taking extra strength Tylenol. She was icing it daily. She was wearing a knee brace. She was a teen, and she thought that she was doing all of the right things. She just had a growth spurt, and obviously she didn't think that this pain was cancer, because teens don't think about cancer. We also called Dr. Sklodowska to the stand, and Dr. Sklodowska took Pat's x-rays and wrote Pat's radiology report. She also wrote in Pat's radiology report that Pat had a 5 to 7 millimeter mass of uncertain origin in her right lung, which needed to be biopsied, further investigated, and it needed to be further investigated by another doctor, meaning Dr. King. She sent this to him electronically. She told him about it in person. She made multiple attempts to make sure that Dr. King knew about this mass, but Dr. King still did nothing. We also called Dr. Lacey Albanus to the stand, who testified that there were some medications that Pat could have taken back in 2011 called Nitocin and gliditamide. And there's been some debate in court today about the FDA approval of the drugs, whether they were suitable for Pat, and although there was no substantial cause to believe that they would have benefited Pat, there was no substantial evidence to believe that they would have harmed her either. They were FDA approved in anyone that had metastasized osteosarcoma, which is exactly what Pat had. The defense called 3 witnesses to the stand today, and the first was Lindsay Delamontagne. Lindsay Delamontagne came to the stand and said that she didn't think that the leg pain that she heard that Pat was having was a big deal. So when she was asked if Pat was having any pain, she didn't mention it. But this pain was a symptom of Pat's cancer. So clearly it was a big deal, and Lindsay should not have left that out. We also heard today from Dr. Stack, who admitted that the drugs were FDA approved for people that had metastasized osteosarcoma, and that Pat did fall into that category. And finally, we heard from Dr. Kang, a cardiothoracic surgeon. Has been working at St. Harney's Hospital for over 15 years. So we heard today that you can't ask a plumber to fix a light bulb. You can't ask an electrician to fix your sink, but can you ask your cardiothoracic surgeon to look at your lungs? I think that the answer to that is yes. Dr. Kang should have read the radiology report. Dr. Kang should have looked at Pat's lungs when making her diagnosis. Your Honor, after hearing all the evidence put forth before you today, I have no doubts that you will side on behalf of the plaintiff, and on behalf of Pat Varma in saying that Dr. King was negligent in the treatment of her cancer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The court will stand in recess for a couple of minutes.
What are we gonna go do?
Are we standing or sitting?
You may be seated. It's my understanding that I am to render two verdicts this afternoon, one of them on the performance of the teams and one of them on the actual outcome as to whether Dr. Sang was negligent in the awarding, in the diagnosing and treatment of Pat Varma's cancer. I don't know which one was harder. I've never had to do this before. This is my first mock trial judging experience, and it was really incredible. I have to say that looking at the elements that comprise a finding of negligence on the part of the doctor, we do have to have the causation, which is actually broken into two pieces. You have the direct causation and you have the proximate causation of the injury that was suffered. And although I can understand, and the plaintiffs made a very, very good argument about some of the things that the doctor didn't do, I don't believe that those actions were the proximate result of Pat Varma's condition, and I am therefore ruling in favor of the defense on the issue of the malpractice. However, and on the issue of the scoring for this, that was unbelievably hard, and the difference came down to 1 point. It was 98 to 97 by my reckoning. And the 1 point difference is a result of a time limit. So the score was defense 98, prosecution 97. You guys should be so proud of yourselves. You did an unbelievably good job. I want to especially point out the two Jordans over here. You were tigers. I wouldn't want to be against you in court. And it was just easy to remember your names because you're both Jordans and you're sitting pretty much directly in front of me. And I would also like to recognize the young lady with the maroon shirt and the black jacket. You're a tiger too. I wouldn't want to be in court against you. And I would also like to have special recognition of the closing statement on the defense's side. I think you did a very good job, but there's one thing I want to make sure as you go on in the competition, that when we're in a civil trial, you're not going to be talking about guilt, and we're not going to be talking, I know both sides talked about beyond a reasonable doubt, but we're going to be looking for a preponderance of the evidence in a civil case, and we're going to be looking for liability as opposed to guilt or innocence. But you guys did a terrific job, and you should all be very, very proud of yourselves, and I'm honored that I was able to take part in this, and I wish you well. I think any one of you would have, you'd find, did you enjoy it? Do you think you might want to be lawyers? I'm seeing a variety of facial expressions, but I think any one of you would make an excellent choice in deciding to be an attorney. You did a great job, and congratulations to all of you. So I will sign off on this, and like I said, thanks so much for having me to participate.
Thank you. Do you guys want your roster? I didn't want to keep it just in case you guys needed that for something. Is that